Hello, beautiful soul. Recently, I was overhearing a conversation between two women, and they were talking about being on a spiritual path, being truly committed to their path of awakening, and having been on this path for a number of years already, where they have truly broken free from the matrix, so to speak. And how one of them was sharing that she was experiencing challenges in starting a new project, which was a collaborative project with people from different walks of life, where people were coming from a background that was more corporate, such as CEOs, business people, and they weren't yet really on a path of awakening, or not yet at the same stage of having fully broken free from the matrix and 3D levels of consciousness, should we say. And I was hearing how this woman was sharing that she was feeling quite tender about having to deal with these people again after having left the matrix, so to speak, and having a hard time knowing how to connect with them, or to feel heard and to feel seen and to feel understood by these people, and that her inner little girl was feeling very vulnerable and sad about it. I was completely quiet and listened as the other woman then responded, saying, well, you need to be aware that these people that you're dealing with are still living in their shells. They haven't expanded themselves to be where you're at. And so when you want to connect with them, you have to contract down and meet them where they're at. Go into their shells to meet them. And as I listened to this, I thought, wow. It wasn't my job to say anything. It wasn't my job to intervene or say anything. But as I listened, I reflected, and because I know that many of us who are awakening or awakened and have been on a path where we are truly committed to breaking free from the matrix and to raising our frequency and birthing new earth, we can sometimes, we're in that liminal space, or we might find ourselves for many different reasons needing or choosing to go back into the corporate sector or the business world or the matrix, so to speak, to earn some money, for example, but earning money can also be to fulfill a particular project, a particular intention, such as to fund your studies, or to fund your studies in a new career, or pursuit or passion that is more aligned with you. There can be many different reasons, and all are completely justifiable, and it's not about that at all. However, I want to share with you my experience of this, because I experienced a spiritual awakening over 20 years ago, and I went back also into the matrix, so to speak, and I worked for the corporate sector part-time for many years. In fact, I was working for a temping agency that would send me to various corporations in various sectors, mostly for long-term projects. And I got to experience very different environments, and I experienced some very highly conscious and mindful management teams in some of these corporations, particularly ones run by the Japanese in particular, international corporations we're talking about. But of course, the Japanese were bringing in their mindfulness and the Buddhism, the Zen Buddhism, and it was beautiful to experience this. And I've experienced some really hardcore, terribly toxic corporate environments, which I won't go into, but I have seen an extreme of experiences and of possibilities that exist, from very low vibe, toxic, to beautiful, conscious, caring, genuinely, these management teams that genuinely care for individuals on a very deep level, on all levels, in a very healthy and beautiful way. And these companies obviously had very happy staff members, very happy, and it was beautiful. However, I wish to share how I dealt with it, being an awakened being, going into these environments, knowing that I was going to deal with people who were perhaps not interested in awakening whatsoever. They were living their 9-to-5 jobs. They were simply working for pay, to pay the bills, to go on holidays, to have the house, to live out that 3D reality, so to speak. They had no interest in anything else. They were interested in entertainment, TV, chocolates, junk food, or sport, and just living that life that we all know so well is very prevalent. So how did I go into this environment? The truth is, you go in there. Well, my sense is, you go in there and you are yourself. Being yourself does not have to mean, being yourself is being yourself. I'm quite a down-to-earth, grounded person in many ways, although some would say I'm perhaps not, because I can be very out there and very expanded and very sensitive. And yet, how did I manage then in these environments? Well, I knew, first of all, that I was being sent to these environments by a higher source. And I knew that the higher selves of these individuals and the people that run these corporations were, whether they were conscious of it or not, calling in individuals such as myself, who were, shall we say, of a more evolved level of consciousness, more aware, more in tune, more out of the matrix, more awake. Any way you want to term it. They were calling in individuals because there is a law that states that without even having to speak a word, someone with a higher vibration can shift the energy of a room or a company just by their presence alone. So I didn't have, and I certainly don't go in there with a label or a badge, on my jacket or anything like that, that would make me seem as though I am any different to who they are. Because the truth is, there is no need for you, just as though there was no need for me to lower my vibration, to contract down to meet anyone at their level. It doesn't work that way. We never do that. If we do that, we risk falling. Do not ever lower yourself or feel you need to go down to meet others at their level. No, because this to me is a type of is a consequence of a type of fragmented understanding, because we are all one. We can always find common ground when we are truly in alignment and in our hearts with each and every individual. With each and every living being, there is common ground. And we can find that when we are in our hearts. This does not mean being unconditional, loving, free love for all. It's none of that nonsense. I'm talking grounded spirituality here. Deeply grounded, embodied spirituality. So there are corporations, there are souls and higher selves that are consciously or unconsciously calling in individuals of a higher level of consciousness to come in, because they know on a higher level, though not consciously, that our presence alone can shift the vibration and begin to bring in a higher level of awareness. And I want to make it clear, this is not something we go in there thinking, right, that's what I'm in there for, that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to look out for those opportunities, look what I'm doing. It's not about that. It's not about me, it's not about you when you go into those environments. It's when we start to think, I'm in here to do this, I've been sent to do this, I'm on a mission to do this. This is the mind, which is the ego, that is getting in the way. No. That will just interfere. In fact, that will create an interference. We don't go in there with those kind of thoughts, because that is, let's, call it what it is. It's ego. And that's just our minds getting out of the way. We go in there. We do the job. We do the job that we've been employed for, And our presence, we find common ground with the people that we're working with, because when we're truly in our hearts and in our alignment, we can find common ground with everyone around us, regardless of the walk of life that they're coming from, their level of consciousness. There is always a way to find common ground. That's coming from a very humble place, and yet it's that inner alignment that can ripple out and touch them and touch those individuals in those environments and create a subtle shift. So it's not about the words that we say. It's not about, there's nothing we certainly don't go in there preaching. We don't go in there thinking, I'm above these people. No, the moment we think that, we have fallen already, because we're coming from ego. We see a separation. We need to come back into unity. Unity consciousness, the law of one, we are all one, is when we come back into our hearts and come from that inner alignment. And that is powerful. That is silent power. And that can create massive changes and deeper levels of awareness. And I've experienced this myself. It might manifest in just observing people who may have had a very high level of stress or fear and things like this. I remember this as COVID was on the onset of breaking out, and many staff members were extremely fearful and stressed and all that. And personally, I never experienced any fear of any of that. But I observed and I could feel the fear in the collective, not only at my work environment at the time, but also went out and about, and just in the field in general. However, I didn't myself feel any fear, but I could pick this up, and I remained myself and just remained calm. And I observed how people would feel really calm, and then they would speak about how they're feeling calm. And this is just one example, just that I would, these high level stress people, a lot of tension, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure in many ways. I observed how during my time there, their stress levels dropped drastically. And it's not that we ever talked about anything, as I said, we don't go in there preaching. It's not that we try anything. There is nothing to try. There's nothing to do. There's other than to do the job that, that we've been employed for when we go into those places, those environments. But it's your presence. It's the level of consciousness that you hold doing those jobs. That is where the magic happens. So it doesn't matter in which environment you're working. We all get sent to various places. And this was my service work for a while, you could say, was to be sent to various places, sometimes even to break things down or to call things out where needed, or to bring a deeper level of awareness to certain situations, or even simply to have observe a shift in consciousness and a shift in the way things were done that was more supportive and honoring of the employees in those sectors. So it's not about lowering your standards, coming down to trying to meet people at their level, going into their shows. No. None of that. If you do that, you will find yourself stuck. Do not ever do that. You just go there, you be yourself, and you just do your thing. There's nothing to prove, there's nothing to show, there's nothing to state, there's nothing to try to be other than yourself. We keep it simple. That's where the power is. So I hope that this has really been of assistance and support to anyone that is on an awakening journey and is struggling with this dilemma. Sending you so much love. Every part of life is sacred. Wherever we go, that is an opportunity to be in service, just with the energy that you are bringing to those environments. Sending you so much love. It's not in what you say, it is in your being, in your presence. Sending you so much love. Bye.